Hi, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us this evening. The special guest again is Law Professor Joe Potuto. Thank you for being here, Joe.
And thank you for inviting me again. And hello, everyone.
Hi. So, how have you been since sentencing?
Inviting me again. I guess I've been okay. It's hard. You get withdrawal when the trial is over. Now the sentencing is over, and you have focused so much time and mental energy to it. It's like you come down. It's like doing a performance, and then it's over.
Yeah.
But I'm doing fine. I've filled in the time with going shopping. So I
Going
may go into
shopping.
debt. Yeah, I may go into debt.
Shopping for what?
Oh, you name it. You name it. I'm a real,
Furniture?
well,
Clothing?
yeah, yeah, I bought a chair, yeah,
Mhm.
clothing, jewelry, um, oh God, cleaning supplies, different kinds of makeup. I discovered these things called page boy hats. I don't wear a hat, but I've ordered 4 of them.
Oh, what's a page boy hat? What's
You've
that?
seen them. It's got a rim, but then it's kind of floppy. If you think of newsboy hats in the 20s, if you
Oh,
go online and put on page boy hats, you'll get a million of them. And I
oh.
don't wear hats, but so I don't know if I'll return all of them, but I'll probably return some of them. So it's dangerous not having a trial because, you know,
Mhm.
I'm unleashed.
Yeah, suddenly you have all this free time on your hands.
Yeah,
There's less
yeah,
Adelson content now,
right.
you know. Yeah. Well, I just looked at it. So you're right. That's what the little newsboys wore
Yeah,
ages ago.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, that
yeah.
looks cool. It'll keep you warm for the
Well,
summer.
if it
I mean,
doesn't
for winter.
fly off my head, I mean, none of them stay where they're supposed to stay. I
Oh,
also got some work done, but it's so much more fun either watching a trial or shopping that
yeah.
my work piles up. So
So are you still into writing law review
I've
articles
got
or is
one,
that done?
yeah, I have one that's almost done, but it's been almost done for about 3 years. And although the although the issue is still current, the examples I use are not. And so I don't want to go back through and have to rework it with new examples. I don't want to go through and have to upgrade everything. I don't want to start again writing it. So I don't know what I'm going to do. So
Mm.
that's been sitting in front of me. Then I decided I'd write a mystery story. So I was, and watching these trials, it's very clear that it's hard to, devise something. I always thought I could do a perfect murder, but with these cameras and the GPSs and everything. So I decided the only thing you could do was poison. So I started looking into poisons. And I asked ChatGPT, I'm in love with ChatGPT,
Yeah.
just, I
Uh-huh.
asked ChatGPT, and ChatGPT gave me some examples of poisons. And then I got one that sounded, maybe plausible. So I asked ChatGPT how much of a dosage it would take to kill someone. And ChatGPT told me it wasn't authorized to provide that information. So,
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
I'm gonna stand still there too. So
Yeah. I've watched lots of forensic files,
yeah.
and usually when there's poison involved, they would get rat poison, or the person had some sort of job in a laboratory, so they had access
Right,
to
right.
certain types of
Well,
poisons.
Agatha Christie has a lot of novels that are, where the motive, the way that the murder is committed is poison. But I don't know if she was a nurse. She worked in a dispensary of some sort during the war, and she
Mhm.
learned about poisons and dosages and how you can administer them and how you can add, I guess water to some of them, whether they're water soluble or how you do it. I don't have that background. I have a 15-year-old niece, and I discussed it with her, and I
Mhm.
wanted her to ask her chemistry teacher, but she's reluctant to cooperate.
Yeah, I wonder why. That'll definitely raise some red flags. Yeah.
So
Oh, it's
that's
for a
right.
book. It's for a book my aunt is writing. Yeah, right.
That's right. Uh,
Huh. Okay. Well, um, yeah, somebody is claiming that there is some sort of interview um with the Markel's lawyer who said he thinks it's the end and there are no more trials. Well, that's interesting.
Oh,
Yeah, but a Substack, I mean, is that a reliable news source? Remember, there's that blog where the person claimed to have interviewed Charlie after Donna's trial, and I contacted that person just to check in because a lot of people were skeptical of whether that was legitimate,
mhm.
and the person never responded. So that makes me think it's just some sort of clickbait
Yeah,
thing.
it is a little interesting. You wouldn't expect their lawyers to be giving an interview like that. Uh,
Mhm.
usually the lawyers stay pretty quiet and don't do anything until there's a formal something that someone else has done, and then they comment. They usually don't generate news on their own. Well, I'm going to hope it's not accurate, because he would probably be in a position to have some inside information about what the prosecution is thinking.
Okay. Yeah. So the person who mentioned that article, if you can post a link to that in the chat, that would be great. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Because usually Ruth Markel will tell a lot of people behind the scenes of any news sources or
Mm.
some sort of vital new news. So I haven't heard of that. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. So
Well,
you
I
guys can
have
share
been
that.
thinking, because the question keeps coming up, will she be prosecuted? When will she be prosecuted? Um, and I know you heard Dave Ehrenberg say, you know, by Thanksgiving, I think he said, and then I heard a couple of people say right after the first of the year. And I have been thinking, Luis Rivera doesn't have much time left before he's released, does he? He's coming
Mm,
close.
yeah. I always thought of something like 2032-ish.
Oh, is it that late? Okay, well then that's pretty good then. I'll stop being concerned
I
about
mean,
it. I
it's
meant
not
to look.
that soon, but
Yeah, okay.
let
I
me
meant
think.
to look because I did think that at the point that he's being released, even though his deal is he has to testify so long as they need him, I think they're going to lose a lot of leverage once he's released from prison to
Mm,
try to get him to
okay.
come back. And so,
Yeah.
uh,
Well, I mean, if they do arrest her this year, hopefully, or even next year, he's still going to be in prison for
yeah,
at least another 6 to 7 years.
okay. So
So,
this time that won't be the
yeah,
reason.
keep hope alive. Let's see if we have a link.
Okay.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Jay and I have sort of had a falling out because he was pretty mad after seeing this live stream that I had with Loophole Lawyer. So I don't follow him now. Yeah.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, I know. He did some great work. So, thanks
Yeah.
to him
I
for
didn't see the
what
link.
he's
So it's
done.
Jay that had it? Is that what
Or
you're saying?
he highlighted it. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So has to do 7 years in state. Okay, thank you. Okay, so here's a link. Thank you.
Yeah, and if
Uh,
that's true that he's done with the federal time, then you're right, because I think he had 7 years after the federal sentence.
yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, since I'm on StreamYard, I can't get to this. So if there's a direct link to it, that would be great. But
Mhm.
okay, let me see. I wish there's a way to find it, but
I could probably get it on my phone, but that
yeah,
won't be much help.
yeah. Let me see.
Mm. Well, I'll be very disappointed in the state if they don't prosecute Wendy, because I
Yes.
continue to believe that there's enough, it's going to be a tougher case. And a jury would have to draw the inferences towards guilt, but I think it's a prosecutable case. And it seems to me they have enough evidence. And if they don't do it because they're not sure about a conviction, or because, they've done this case so many years that they're sort of, wiped out about it, I'll really be disappointed, because I think
Mhm.
I will never feel that justice was fully served.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. Um, yeah, I'm looking through the chat. Don't have a direct link. Let me see. Because when I Google Warren Snyder and Substack and Adelson,
Hmm.
this recent post by David Latt, who was actually friends with Dan from Harvard days, um, David Latt's newest interview comes up, but it's in audio form. So,
Uh,
yeah, so I can't read it. Anyway, let's move on then so we
okay.
don't bore the viewership or whatever. So I'll look into it. Thank you guys. So why don't we just go ahead and show this little snippet here from Donna's sentencing. And during the actual hearing, um, you were commenting through STS.
Right.
Right. Yeah, with Tim.
Yeah, Tim, I think was on the whole time when we did the trial. Tim had, his own practice and other things, and he went and sat in court for part of it. Actually, I think he was in court for part of the trial when I was commenting, but he was
Oh,
certainly there for part.
oh, okay. That's great.
I
Okay.
think that's right. I think I saw him in court for part.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Julia. She says the written transcript is below on David Ladd's Substack website. So we'll take a look at that later. So
Okay.
sorry, I haven't heard of this at all until right now. So, okay, let's look at Donna. So she started out by praising Dan. Wasn't that interesting? Talking about what a great person he was. He was such a scholar, and, she would have stopped it if she had known about this whole conspiracy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Brilliant legal scholar. He would have been appalled at the total lack of justice that went on during my trial. He would have been embarrassed to have his name associated with any of it. There are two crimes here. The first was Danny being viciously murdered. The second one is taking my life, the life of an innocent woman. Convicting me should not be retribution for Danny's death. That is not justice for Dan. I've always respected the law. I've never gotten a parking ticket, but I'm going to prison for a murder I did not commit. I do intend to file an appeal so that hopefully I have the opportunity to be given a fair trial outside of Tallahassee.
Is private student loan debt wrecking your life? You really need to talk to Y-Refi.
All of us who loves him. For the past 9.5 years, the state has broadcast to the world, including Danny's parents and sister, that I hired hitmen to kill him. Never in a million years would I have wanted Danny to be harmed or killed, nor could I ever do something that would leave these two small boys to grow up without him. I love these boys more than life itself. This is a lifetime of loss for these children. They didn't deserve this. His family didn't deserve this. Danny didn't deserve this. And so, as I appear before you today, Your Honor, I promise you with my whole heart, I swear to you on my life, I was not involved in any way with Danny's murder. I was not.
Defense have any further argument to make?
Judge, before Ms. Fulford makes the argument, I want to address a comment that the court made a few moments ago concerning considering lack of remorse and fashioning a sentence. Shepherd v. State, 227 Southern 3rd, 746, the First District Court of Appeal held that lack of remorse cannot be considered in fashioning an appropriate sentence. If this were a situation where remorse and admission of guilt may be grounds for mitigation, the lack of these factors cannot be used to increase the defendant's sentence, and such reliance violates the defendant's due process rights. And they also rely on Ritter v. State, 885 Southern 2nd, 413, also a first DCA case.
I believe the Supreme Court has ruled on this issue concerning remorse and lack of showing remorse as well. If you need me to find the citation for you, I will.
Yes, please.
We'll take a 10-minute break.
Okay. So what were your feelings when you heard Donna crying and claiming that she's innocent?
I thought it was completely insincere. I thought her embracing Dan and claiming that she knew that he would see that her trial was a travesty was completely outrageous. I thought it was worse, frankly, than Jackie Fulford calling him Danny during the trial. Just completely inappropriate, something I think no defendant should ever do and should never have the right to do it. I said the other day at sentencing, and I think we probably all would agree that she was playing to her friends some, to the greater audience some, but essentially she was playing to her two grandsons to tell them that she was innocent, that she did nothing, that she would have never taken their father away from them, that she loved them too much to do anything that would harm them, that he was a wonderful person and she knew it and she loved him. And all that was playing to them essentially and no one else. And it didn't ring true to me. And I think if those boys ever reach the point where they look at some of the emails and some of the trial testimony, they may ultimately have a little trouble believing her too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's also that point where she, just like her friends and Harvey, kept saying, where's the evidence? Where's the evidence before July 18th? And there's no evidence. And I was thinking, well, there's circumstantial evidence as well as your weird behavior even after that. And you did say something on Surviving the Survivor that the crime wasn't over until they paid the hitman.
Right.
And she was involved with that. There was evidence of that.
Right. Well, you've got that video that you did on the Williams case, which is the case that they're really focused on when they say for murder one, there's no evidence. And that was the Denise Williams. It was her husband was killed. And for many years, the claim was that he'd been eaten by alligators. And what it was she and her lover, who was actually the victim's best friend, had conspired to have him killed. And her murder one conviction was overturned, and the Florida Supreme Court said there wasn't enough showing her involvement. She was not at the scene, and her involvement before just wasn't enough. But that was not a murder for hire. And this is a murder for hire. And a murder for hire anticipates paying, and you don't complete the murder for hire crime until the payment is made. And she's certainly involved in that. So her focused on that, what did she say? The July 18 date is the wrong date. It's at least got to be the 19th or the 20th or the 21st. I mean, they're all evidence, much more than I think you could show that in terms of Denise Williams' involvement is there for Donna. So I think on an appeal, that murder one conviction will stand.
That's good to hear your opinion. Yeah,
it is mine. But well, and you did a great job analyzing the Williams case. What do you think?
Oh, thank you. Well, that was that was like years ago when hardly anyone was watching this channel. So while I was doing these kind of boring legal topics, I was thinking, well, who the heck even cares about this? I guess I need something to talk about. So I covered it. It was also because back then that was around the time that I had interviewed Stephen Epstein, who also wrote that sort of controversial book about Dan Markel's murder. And his book about this Mike Williams case is really well written.
Mhm.
So that's why it was still kind of fresh in my mind when the Supreme Court in Florida came out with its decision.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, but that was a totally different case. Just as you said, it was not a murder for hire. It was just Denise and her husband's best friend who were having an affair. And so they plotted to kill him off because she couldn't stand the bad reputation she might have if she divorced him. And she didn't want to share joint custody with Mike. So why not just lure him to a fishing trip and then kill him? So originally, his so called best friend was planning to just shove him out of the boat, but that didn't work because Mike somehow landed on a tree stump or something under the water. So he was like, "What's going on? Why did you push me out of the boat?" So of course, Brian's next step is to pull out his rifle and shoot his friend in the head. So there, I guess the court felt like the prosecution didn't prove that there was some sort of overt act that Denise did.
Yeah, and
They-
the evidence came from him as
Mhm.
to her involvement, and he was a little bit equivocal on how much she did and how much he might have encouraged her, because they had thought about doing it earlier, and she had cold feet, so they didn't, and then he had to encourage her again. And even her involvement would have been making sure that Mike went fishing that day. And there
Yes.
wasn't a whole lot, even from her co-defendant's testimony or from the testimony of the friend, that she actually encouraged Mike to go. He talked
Mm.
about that was what she was supposed to do, and certainly Mike went, but there wasn't a lot. And it's all coming from him, which I think probably made the Supreme Court look a little more closely at the evidence, because in that case he had kidnapped her, they had broken up at that point, and
Yeah.
so if you were the court, you might well look at that evidence from him with a little closer view as to whether, it's believable. In any event, I agree with you. It's a different case. I don't think it will apply in this one.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, and plus you do have tons of text between her and Charlie and phone calls. So she was doing other stuff that a reasonable trier of fact could
Mhm.
conclude that, yeah, she was totally involved. She was
Yeah.
like doing these like communications about the birthday present and, you know, having all sorts of communications with her son. So, um,
Yeah.
that's also why I found it so aggravating that her friends and herself, they were, just very dismissive as to the witnesses. What about Katie Magbanua and Rob, Rob
Mhm.
Adelson? They seemed very credible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she also misstated the evidence.
Mhm.
She said that the evidence that was used in terms of the phone records and everything, that, oh, what's his name? I'm missing his name now.
Corbett?
Corbett.
Yeah.
I had a C, but I couldn't get the rest of it out. Uh, Said that she did not have her phone with her. And he never said that. He just said that the phone might have been off. You couldn't prove that the phone was there at Charlie's house the night of the murder. But she misstated that completely. And there were other things she said. She said that the state in each of the trials had said first it was Katie that was the mastermind, and then it was Charlie that was the mastermind, and now she was the mastermind. I don't recall the state ever saying Katie was the mastermind,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure in Donna's that they said she was the mastermind, but my memory might be
Yeah.
off a little.
Well, she doesn't even have to be the mastermind. She still took part in it and had some
Exactly.
sort of role. So,
Exactly. And then her comment, which annoyed me then, and when I just heard it again, it annoyed me again, about her claim that she would have never, taken a loving father away from these children that she loved, and, because it was so harmful to them, is essentially what she said. But at the trial, when there was that evidence of Wendy saying or emailing her or texting, I don't remember what it was, that the older boy was having trouble at school and emotional difficulties, he missed his father. What she said was, I see them all the time. They're perfectly happy. He's just being a child. He's too young to remember. The person who said that couldn't be the person who at sentencing said, I knew how terrible it would be for those children to lose a loving father, and I never would have done it.
Exactly. There's so much hypocrisy here.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I'm trying to think. There was something else that, the whole thing was just bizarre because I don't recall seeing anyone acting like that at sentencing. Maybe I haven't seen enough true crime trials on TV, but it was weird.
The only one I saw that came close, but for a different reason, was Sarah Boone, who also had a really wild allocution at sentencing. Really wild.
Oh, how was that? I missed that.
Well, she also, said she was innocent, but what she did was, and actually was masterful. If you're only thinking about the use of the English language, it was masterful, because she said even though she had been so mistreated by everybody, that she was forgiving everybody. And then she went through it, and everything was, I forgive you for lying about me.
What?
And it was twisted. It was really priceless. That's the only one that would come close. But this one, in some ways, was worse. And this idea that the jury, she couldn't get a fair trial out of this jury, given the 3 jurors who actually talked about how careful they were, was just extraordinary to me, that she could say that in the face of what the jurors had said. And her claim, another claim, that this was one of the ones that really annoyed me, that one of the jurors who actually said she knew someone who involved in the case, and how did she end up on this jury? Well, why didn't your lawyer strike her?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I wanted to ask you and the chat about, because that was the first time I heard this allegation. She said that one of my jurors had known the background of one of the witnesses. So what does that mean? That doesn't even mean they were friends or they actually knew each other.
Yeah, and I didn't hear that. I had a funeral to go to during part of this jury selection process. And it may have been, some of that was at sidebar, it was not part of the public record anyway. So I have no idea, any more than you do, as to what the jurors' relationship was. But if it was really something that looked like bias, that juror would have been struck for cause. And the defense had peremptories to use and could have struck that juror. If they ran out of their peremptories because they didn't count well enough and they weren't more cautious, that's not on anybody but her lawyers.
Yeah. And ultimately, this is what's great, is that the judge did ask her if she was satisfied and okay with this jury that got chosen.
And she said yes.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah. Um, let's see. Oh, lots of questions in the chat. Okay, we'll get to them. But right now, I'm still kind of intrigued by this interview with Oren Snyder. So
Yeah.
let's just go ahead and bring it on the screen, and
Do you
we'll
have
look
it?
at
Good.
it. We'll look at it in real time.
Okay.
But this is all just stuff about his legal career.
Okay.
Oh, I guess he wrote a book or something.
Hmm.
Okay. Where's the Markel stuff? He's writing a memoir. Do you think it would be interesting to read the memoir of a big law firm partner? I don't know. That sounds kind of boring to me, but let me look into it.
I'd have to see the list of his clients to answer that.
Yeah, yeah. But still, there's client confidentiality.
Of
You
course
can't
there. I
be
see the Dan
spilling the
Markel stuff
beans.
now.
Where,
There it
where?
is.
Oh, there it
Under
is.
well, that's amazing. The next
Okay.
paragraph.
Yeah, so let me ask you something different. Would you like to read, since you can read better than I
It's
can?
very tiny on my
Okay,
screen,
sorry.
so I don't know.
Uh,
Oh, wait a minute. I can get it. I can make it a little larger. Let's see. Okay, sure. So let me ask, is that where you are?
where?
You moved it somehow.
I'm sorry, somehow.
That's okay. It should be look like a D4 to me.
Yeah, you wrote a book, Bobby Blab. It's like, yeah,
Here
I
it
don't
is. Here
really.
it is. Okay, here we go.
Wow. Well, that's amazing.
Now you
Okay.
moved it away again. Move
Oh.
it down a little. There you go.
Okay.
So let me ask you about something different. One case of yours that has been very important to me personally is your representation of the Markel family in the wake of the horrific murder of Professor Dan Markel, who was a friend of mine. This is a pro bono case. You've done a lot of great pro bono over your career, but this one stands out to me for obvious reasons. How did you come to get involved in that case? So what's the name of this lawyer? Do we know?
Oren Snyder?
Okay, I didn't know he
Yes.
was friends with the Markels.
No,
Okay.
no. David Latt is the one who's questioning him.
Oh,
So
okay.
David also, he actually went to Yale with my ex-husband, Yale
Oh,
Law School. So David worked, I think, for the U.S. Attorney's Office for a while before he decided to focus on his blog Above the Law. So that still exists, but I'm not sure if David still is involved with that. So he's focusing on his Substack.
okay.
Mhm. Okay.
So you want me to?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, it's a good question and it's been asked of me a lot, and I haven't really talked too much about it, but I will since you have been such a supporter of the family and also obviously knew Dan as well. It's interesting. I never met Dan. I was scheduled to meet Dan, but I never met Dan. But everyone who knew him loved him. He was beloved. He was a law professor at Florida State University in Tallahassee. He graduated from Harvard Law School and decided, instead of going into big law, to become a constitutional and criminal law scholar. He had 2 beautiful boys and an ex-wife. Bring it
Okay.
down just a bit.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. There you go. I got a phone call from Dan's friend, then girlfriend, Amy Adler, who's a professor of law at NYU. Amy and I are friends, and she said, Dan's been shot. Oh my goodness, Dan's been shot. Can you help the family? And I said, of course. There wasn't a hesitation. There wasn't an equivocation. There wasn't even a thought, just a response. Of course, not knowing what that would entail. Dan was assassinated in the driveway of his house, and a number of juries have heard cases and decided through their verdicts that that's where mine
Sorry.
ends.
Okay.
Okay, that there was a conspiracy and that the family of his ex-wife, the Adelson family, Adelson, in particular the mother and brother, conspired to hire hitmen to have Dan assassinated which is what happened. And it's a sordid, tragic tale that is at once horrific and at the same time almost unbelievable to think it would and could have happened in this situation. What started out as a representation with no true assignment or definition became more than a decade of supporting the family in their pursuit of justice, which was long winding and delayed, but ultimately justice was served. The prosecutors in Tallahassee were incredibly dogged, personally committed, professionally excellent, and I'll just say this. We, as lawyers for Dan's surviving parents, Ruth and Phil, and Dan's sister, provided support to the local authorities in their investigation and advocated for additional federal resources to ultimately conduct the investigation that was necessary to bring to justice both hitmen, who then flipped on the middle woman, who then got convicted and flipped on the brother, who then got convicted. And ultimately, the mother-in-law of Dan was convicted a couple of weeks ago by a jury, unanimously, and will spend hopefully the rest of her life in jail. The tragedy is not just Dan not living beyond his early years and robbing his own family of his company, but his two sons will grow up knowing that his grandmother and uncle conspired to have their father killed. It's just unfathomable. Out of the process came legislation in Florida that gave grandparental rights because the alienation of affection between the kids and Dan's parents started before even the body was cold. They were denied access to their grandchildren. And now there's a law that says that in these kinds of circumstances, it's called the Markel Act, grandparents do have those rights. But sometimes in life, tragedy has no warning and no explanation or solace. It just sits there like a reminder of not only the fragility of life, but also, if anything, a reminder to make the most of life, because you could be sitting in your driveway and the next day have two assassins shoot you in the head. In fact, they were so cheap that they hired first-time assassins who didn't know how to commit an assassination. And they shot poor Dan in the head, and it took him 20 hours to die because they weren't even good at the art of assassination. One last question on this topic. You mentioned the recent conviction of Donna Adelson, Dan's former mother-in-law. Do you think we've reached to the end of the road in this case, or are you expecting more charges? Because a lot of people are wondering that. I don't have any insight into that, and I'm not being coy or circumspect to avoid an answer, but I think we're probably at the end of the road is my guess. And then they go into something else.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. So, I mean, that's just one sentence said by this attorney in New York City who works in big law. So, I mean, meanwhile, Dave Herrenberg is a recent state attorney in Florida, and he's been very optimistic. He said 95% chance that Wendy will be arrested.
And if this lawyer is being truthful, he says he doesn't have any inside information. It's just his guess.
Yeah.
So if he's being truthful, he hasn't heard anything from the prosecutors. He hasn't heard anything from law enforcement. He hasn't heard anything from the FBI. And he hasn't heard anything from Phil or Ruth.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Juliet says it's curious that Warren didn't acknowledge the mountain of evidence that would make an end to the trial's a travesty. Okay. And hey, Mona says boo hiss. Okay. Well, it's just like one comment that he made to David Glatt, where he's talking about his book and his legal career. So I don't take that to be too depressing or pessimistic.
Well, I would have been happier if he said, I don't have any inside information, but yes, I think she will be prosecuted.
Yeah, that would have been more uplifting to hear him say. Yeah. Okay, if Georgia Kaplan or Sarah Catherine Dugan say Wendy will not be pursued, then I'm staying tuned and expect that to happen. And remember, in Mentor Lawyer's recent interview with Detective Isom, he said that Pat Sanford is still on the case, still investigating. So
Yeah,
that sounds positive.
it does.
Yeah.
And I just can't, I mean, it's hard for me to believe that they could be sort of worn out with the case and want to do something else. I mean, it seems to me that getting this far, and I just have to believe that they all think Wendy was involved, that they would just drop it. That just doesn't jibe with my picture of how committed and how dogged and how, you know, uh,
How zealous
yeah,
Georgia
that was my word. I was
Cappleman
gonna say
has
effective.
been.
Zealous is
Yeah.
better, yeah. And
Mhm.
not letting it go.
Mhm.
And even the work involved, I mean, a lot of it's already done. Yeah, you're gonna have to re-interview witnesses, and there may be some new information, but the groundwork is already there, so I just don't understand it. And I
Mhm.
thought about it some, and although with Wendy, they've got the immunized testimony information, I went back and listened to a fair part of the initial interview that Isom did with Wendy the day of the shooting.
Mhm.
And I actually don't think the immunized testimony issue will be a big problem for the state. I think the defense will certainly scream and yell about it and make them, jump through every hoop. But it seems to me that the sort of any barrier is not really there, that they can pretty easily avoid using anything that she said on the stand. And I thought Georgia was careful each time not to ask her more questions, and get more information than she absolutely had to have. So I don't think, except for the fact that the defense will make it, an issue, I don't think it will be a big problem.
Mhm. Yeah, and is that because Wendy was so guarded and unhelpful on the stand anyway? So she
Yeah,
didn't really give any new info.
which you couldn't have used. Well,
Mhm.
it's large part what her interview with Isom and what she told him. I mean, a lot of what you would use is in that original interview. And then, some of it comes from other places. Jeff, I thought one of the pieces of information that came out this time that was pretty compelling was Jeff saying that she asked him at what ages, do children's memories, would a child who lost a parent, be affected by it, when that happens. I mean, that's pretty damning. I mean, it's not me. It's not her saying I had the father of my children killed, or my children going to be damned. And that would be your direct evidence. But people don't usually say that. But I think that was pretty compelling evidence, and it was new evidence. And so I do think there's enough other places. I mean, the Jeff's car, which we found out this time, at least I didn't know before, that the killers had actually rented a car just like his the first try, and then they had to bring it back, and so they didn't get to use it.
Mhm.
So you have the evidence of the two trips to Tallahassee to do the killing are both times that Jeff is out of town, and who would know that other than Wendy? And the first time they rented a car that looked like his, exactly like his, and the second time it was sort of close, and
Yeah.
who would know that? I mean, so there's a lot like that.
Okay, let me say something. Sorry.
Okay.
That was actually mentioned at previous trials. And I thought, whoa, that was a very surprising thing when they flashed up the Nissan Altima.
Uh-huh.
So it wasn't exactly the same car because Jeff had a silver Nissan Sentra, but
Uh-huh.
they did rent during the first attempt the silver Nissan Altima, which does, look very, very
Yeah,
similar. But
yeah.
the problem is that Lewis and Katie, neither one of them, as far as I know, said anything about being told to get a certain type of car. Well, with Katie, her memory is so terrible that
Yeah.
it was so frustrating to hear her proffer interviews. But with Luis Rivera, he just said that with the Prius, that was just something that the rental car guy suggested, something like, hey, there's this little Prius here, you want it? So that kind of stinks that, as
Is it more?
lay
Yeah.
people, who are observers of this case, we think, there's got to be
Yeah.
some connection. But unfortunately, those two key players didn't say anything about that. The car.
Was it Sigfredo or Lewis the first time who rented the car at the first car?
Oh,
You
I
remember?
think we need to ask the chat. Sandra, the trivia queen, is in the chat, I think. So, let's see.
Oh, let's see if we get the
Howie
answer to
Swift
that.
says there was a note of some type of
That's what I
instruction.
want.
she gave
I
to
want that
Sigfredo.
note.
Oh,
Because you remember, Luis thought Sigfredo the first time. So, I mean, it's not as good, clearly, but it's not nothing that the first time it was the car that was really close, and Sigfredo was the one that had the note, which what we think with the picture of Dan Markel, and the car was pretty close. And the second time it wasn't dramatically different. And who knows what would have happened. They said, here's a car we have, and he took it. I don't know, but it doesn't hurt because most evidence is not 100% on your side. It's always, you get about 80%. They can nick it for about 20%. Maybe it's 70, maybe it's 60. They can nick it, but it's still something.
mm-hmm.
And boy, I wish Sigfredo would decide to talk.
Mm-hmm. Okay, it wasn't a real rental place. Sigfredo first rented a silver Altima, got a speeding ticket, had to get the light blue Hyundai the first time.
Right.
Yeah, thank you guys. So knowledgeable. See, it's kind of like, maybe.
Well, here's something else that maybe the chat will know. As long as you're doing this, it'll save me having to dig through and see if I can find it. Because I didn't see the first trial, and I haven't seen the whole first trial ever, because by the time I was watching, we were well past that trial. And now I've talked myself away from my question. It will come back to me, and then I'll ask the chat what they know.
Okay,
so let's go on.
Sure. Yeah, so it could have been.
I do know. Luis talks about having seen the lady with the two kids the day they were in Tallahassee. They were in the apartment complex behind the house.
The day before the shooting.
And there was a agreement that the state and the defense reached with regard to that, and it was entered into evidence in this trial, and I believe maybe it was in Charlie's trial also, that Wendy did not have the boys the day that was supposed to have happened.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think there may be even more, that the boys were at school at the time that Luis said he saw them, right? But yeah. I don't know, did they do the same thing with the first trip as to whether the boys were in school and Wendy didn't have custody? Because Luis could have been correct that he saw her and mistaken as to whether it was the first trip or the second trip.
Yeah.
Does anybody know the answer to that?
That I don't know if they investigated that much. Yeah. So big question mark there. The same thing with the whole get the bullet bourbon or bullet rye whiskey, That
I think was just a coincidence, because they've got the invitation, I think.
Yeah, but who knows if that's for real? It could have been faked. No. Yeah, because it wasn't authenticated.
Well, but somebody must have had that party, surely.
Yeah, there was a party.
Interviewed.
Yes, there was a party.
But I don't know whether they checked to see were children allowed at the party. And if not, who was the babysitter that had been lined up? Mm-hmm. I mean, if she was planning to go to that party that day, surely she had a babysitter ready.
Yeah. And that's again, this is kind of up for discussion. We've discussed it for years. I remember fancy fiction saying that in Tallahassee, it would have been no big deal for people to bring kids to that type of event at someone's house. But to me, I still think like if it's supposed to be like a pre-wedding type of party where people are bringing alcohol at night, why would you bring two little kids who are about 3 and 4 or
Right,
4 and
very
5?
little. I think they
Yeah,
were 3 and 4,
so
yeah.
sounds
But
kind of strange.
presumably somebody checked it out and asked, or if not, they can still check it out and ask.
Yeah, I
That's
think
something where the evidence isn't
Yeah.
gone, you know?
yeah,
And I don't know whether they ever checked in Miami about whether the boys had, when it was that the boys were listed to be enrolled in school, because
yes.
wasn't it Katie on your show? I think I might have been on the show with her, where she said the waiting list at the, you know, the really prime schools, you know, or you have to do it well in advance. And that would be another thing if the records are still there to check, you know, where they enrolled and if so, when, and if it's before Dan Markell was killed, that's yet another little piece,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, yeah. So that's all stuff that hopefully they investigated to prepare for Wendy's trial because it wasn't relevant
Yeah.
for the other people. So, yeah. Well, if you guys have some questions, please put some question marks first. So, let's see.
Did you want
Oh,
to
okay.
talk about, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, yes, that's right. We're supposed to talk about that case. Yeah,
That's
I'm
right.
so sorry. I made you read that case and we haven't even talked about
Oh,
it.
no, I like reading cases.
Mhm.
But I'll tell you before we get into it, I cannot, and I've said this before, and I will say it again and again and again. I do not understand the defense lawyers. I mean, I've had questions about, you know, first year of law school, did you learn this? Did you learn that? And in most law schools, you don't learn evidence law in your first year, but you certainly learn that an older case is not good law if there's a later case that's different in the same jurisdiction. And you
Yeah.
certainly learn that a state Supreme Court case has priority over an appellate court. And at
Mhm.
that hearing, Josh Zellman cites 2 first district cases, and the judge says there's a Florida State Supreme Court, and it's this one. And he said, do you want the cite? And Zellman says, yes. Now, how in the world can you be bringing law to a judge and not know that there's a Supreme Court case on the issue that contradicts the appellate court cases that you're relying on?
Mhm. Yeah,
I mean, you can
that's
see how
just
passionate I get about this stuff
exactly.
because I just
Exactly.
can't. And they did it before
Yeah.
at one of the other hearings. They cited a first district case, and there was a later first district case that they didn't know about. I mean,
Mhm.
that's stuff that you shouldn't be able to get out of law school and not know. I mean, that's like
Mhm.
not knowing the B comes after A in the alphabet.
Yeah, and it also sort of looks like you're trying to pull a fast one over the judge when you cite case law that is not um, on point or valid
Yeah, we're not
anymore.
good law anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, well, would you like to give us a little synopsis of this Davis case?
Yeah, it's a case of a young man who's been convicted of a felony in possession of a firearm. And he's got a record of other crimes, some of which seem to be violent crimes. And the first district, the appellate court in the case, looked at whether the judge could consider in sentencing the defendants continuing to say he was innocent and not showing any responsibility or remorse. And the first district in that case ended up reversing an earlier first district case and saying you can use it. And what they said was, we've always said you can use a showing of remorse or a showing of genuine taking responsibility to come down from the maximum sentence. So it should be equally available to use it to go up towards the maximum sentence. There's no difference, and you can manipulate it in the terms of the way you say it. In other words, I could say, on the evidence in this case, and I saw the evidence in the case, and I heard all the witnesses, and I saw the exhibits, I would give 15 years. But because this defendant showed genuine remorse, I'm going to credit that with him, and I'm going to sentence to 12 years. Okay? Or you could say, if you were the judge, I was going to sentence you to 12 years or 9 years, let's say 9 years, but because you showed no responsibility or remorse, I'm putting you at 12. And 12 is the sentence in either case. And if I know what the rule is, I can word what I say to make it look like I'm coming down or look like I'm going up. And if I'm not allowed to go up, I can word it to say I'm coming down. I was going to give you 15, now I'm going down and it will be 12. And the state Supreme Court said, we agree. And although we said in earlier cases that you can't use lack of remorse at sentencing to go up, we were talking about capital cases. And not only were we talking about capital cases, we were talking about cases where there's statutory aggravating and mitigating factors. And therefore, you're not allowed to count up in that system because you don't have the discretion to do it. But for a crime where all that the statute says is you can give 15 years, and it's totally in the judge's discretion whether to give 15 years or 12 years or 9 years or whatever, whatever we said in the capital case has no bearing. And I would add that Zellman said to the judge, when the judge said, Davis says I can do it in red, Zellman said, but this is a capital case. And in the first place, in the reasoning, it's not a capital case because the sentence for first-degree murder was a mandatory. So there were no aggravating or mitigating. The judge didn't have any leeway to do anything. And conspiracy to commit murder is not capital. You can't get the death penalty for conspiracy to commit murder. So his argument was completely off point.
Okay. So it seemed like he just had some sort of superficial knowledge or idea and then tried to apply it to Donna's situation.
You captured that extremely well and in so few words compared to all the words I used to get to the same place. But yes, absolutely.
Okay. Well, I mean, this is definitely an interesting case to read, though. I mean,
Yes.
for people who care about constitutional law and self-incrimination. Yeah.
Yeah, and it has some bearing. I was thinking about it in terms of the use immunity issue that Donna has, because what the court said here is nobody can compel you to get on the stand and be a witness against yourself. The Fifth Amendment protects you. But if you voluntarily get on the stand, then all bets are off. And you can be asked anything, and you don't have the right to say, I'm on voluntarily only to talk about, item A, and I'm not going to answer questions about item B. And the court said sentencing is the same thing. You're not being forced to say anything at the allocution. You can just be mute. If you decide voluntarily to talk, well, then your privilege to say you can't force me to do it is gone at the sentencing. And the court also said, and I think Judge Everett talked about it at the hearing also, that you can get on the stand, or she didn't even do that. You can in your allocution say, show that you feel really bad about something without also saying, but I'm innocent. And even if you say I'm innocent, you don't at the allocution give no other explanation for why the judge's sentence should be low other than you're innocent. I mean, you can talk about other factors. And in both the Davis case and Donna, all they talked about was I'm innocent or other factors that had nothing to do with, blaming other people. Donna blamed the jury. She blamed the biased judge. She said if it hadn't been Tallahassee, I wouldn't have been convicted. None of those show any sense of remorse or responsibility whatsoever. And so she didn't use the allocution to give the judge any reason why he would depart downward. And we're talking about the conspiracy now, from 30 years. All she said was, I'm innocent, and the jury was biased, and you, judge, you were biased. Those are not reasons for a downward departure.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, do you get the feeling that the attorneys actually reviewed Donna's statement before she started giving her spiel?
You know, I've heard a lot of lawyers say no, and I think they did. I don't think they pushed very hard for her to change what she said. I think they may have told her, you know, you should show some remorse. You're not giving any reason for a departure. But I think they saw it because Jackie was looking over her shoulder as she was reading it, turning the pages for her as she went. So I don't think what Donna did was well advised if her purpose was to persuade the judge to give her some other sentence on the conspiracy or the solicitation. But I don't think that was her purpose. Her purpose was to tell the boys, I didn't do it. I still think she could have done it differently. She wanted to profess her innocence and say, you know, there wasn't enough evidence and others did it, but I didn't. You know, so be it. That's her statement to the boys. But she could have, at the same time, I think, done a better job of saying, but even if you believe that I had involvement, my involvement was really minor compared to everybody else. You know, I was, you know, if you believe that this isn't the way it happened, but if you want to believe the evidence, then what the evidence shows is I was a mother who really loved both her daughter and her son. And when I got wind of the fact that something was going on, maybe I made the wrong decision, but I supported my son or my daughter. I mean, she could have worded it differently. I think she probably decided the judge wasn't going to do a downward departure. And so, you know, she was just going to stick to her, you know, the road that said, I'm innocent, I'm innocent, I'm innocent for the boys.
Yeah, it was her chance to just let it all out since she chose not to testify during her trial.
Right. And I
Yeah.
thought she was a coward not to give a sworn statement. I mean, she's going to be that impassioned, and she wants to tell the boys, "Look at me, you know, I was innocent, and I'm being railroaded." Give it under oath. And I think she didn't. In part, she might have been worried about perjury, but perjury, you generally have to have 2 statements under oath in order for you to have a successful perjury prosecution. And this was only 1 statement under oath. I also guess that maybe it avoided the state from cross-examining her, and she wanted to avoid cross-examination. And that's why she didn't do it. But and if you're so sure, you know, you're right and it's truthful and you really want to go at it, then why, you know, close yourself off from having the state question you? Although I don't think Georgia would have done it anyway. I think she would have just stayed away from it completely. But it is a little, I think, you know, you're so sure you're right and you've been maligned and you're such this poor, innocent person. So why not do it under oath? Would have more weight if you did it under oath, if you're so, you know, impassioned and so, you know, wanting to tell the world that you're this innocent person. Do it under oath.
Okay. Well, do you have time to take a few questions?
Sure.
Okay.
May not be
thank
able to
you.
answer them very well, but I'm trying to answer them shorter than the last time, since you got
Okay.
it done in 8 words
No,
or
that's
10
fine.
or whatever.
Well, that's also because I have trouble speaking, so sometimes I have to make things very concise. Yeah. John has a good question. If the state already had independent evidence about something, they ask Wendy on the stand, can they still use that evidence? Yes.
Yeah. Yes. In theory, yes. But in practice, that's a risky thing to do because you've got to demonstrate that it was independent and it wasn't colored or affected by anything she said on the stand under the grant of immunity. And as soon as you use the independent evidence to give her a chance to talk about it, you can still use what you had. You just make it harder to show that it was independent. And so, as a matter of caution, you likely wouldn't do it.
Mhm. Okay. Well, somebody did ask, are you always working, Joe? Seems like you like to stay busy.
I do.
Yeah.
And I'm in a Shakespeare reading group, and I've got 2 book
Oh,
clubs, and and 2 Italian classes a week.
wow.
And now I'm doing this app on how you can train your brain to listen more carefully. And
Good.
the app is annoying me, so it's because it repeats the same questions, and I think it shouldn't do that. But yeah, I do
Hey,
like to stay busy.
yes, that's so important to stave off dementia and other health problems too.
Well, also when I'm bored, I'm just miserable.
Mhm.
So,
Oh, so do you still go to law professors' conferences?
I've done the American Law Institute, although I didn't go this year, and I did the Sports Law Institute a year ago and didn't go this year. And I've been thinking about whether next year I will do either of them. I didn't do them last year because I was in Italy, and so I couldn't. And so I'm going to have to decide. So I'm not averse to going to them, and you do learn at those conferences. Partly it'll depend on my schedule.
Okay. This is interesting. If Wendy was of color, she would have been arrested after the interview she did. The double standard here is even more frustrating. Well, I think at that point they didn't have enough evidence to arrest her, though.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't, I never look for reasons other than what is, sort of there and explained unless there's more evidence. And I don't know what the evidence would be that they would have gone after someone who was a minority in a different way based on what I know about the way ISOM operated, or the investigator for the prosecution. So Taylor, you may be right, but all I can say is I don't have independent information that that's what was going on, and nor do I know how Tallahassee, how the police department deals generally with what their general demographic information is as to how they handle trials. So I'm not going to say you're wrong. I'm just going to say I don't have enough to say yes or no.
Okay. And how does that $723,123.86 court costs to Donna work? Are the courts able to force them to pay? And if so, how? Katie Bogenschutz actually addressed this during the previous live stream. She said it would be like a civil judgment where the state could try to collect on it. But that's the problem. It's like, as far as I know, they created trusts.
Yeah.
So how's the state going to get it? Although I kind of feel like Charlie did pay his costs. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw receipts.
But he didn't get a big number like
Yeah,
that,
it
did he?
wasn't that bad. It was
Yeah.
probably like a few thousand or no
Yeah.
more than 10,000, I think.
Well, I'll say
Yeah.
before I try to answer that I got really worried because if you recall, when the trial didn't go last year, Judge Everett said, and you're going to have to pay for all the witness travel and everything associated, and all the expenses that the state incurred to get this trial ready to go today that now it's not going. And I inquired right at the start of the hearing I guess Tim was on the call, was on the video then. Did he know whether that number included those? And he didn't. And then Everett had asked Georgia, and she couldn't remember. And I don't think she even understood what he asked her, given her answer. And I thought, gee, if I were a Florida taxpayer, for them to forget to calculate that too, that would have been on my, on my bulletin board in the office. Remember to add these expenses. So I don't know whether that's the full number, whether it actually includes last year or it doesn't. I am informed by something I heard, maybe it was Patty's Playhouse. I'm not sure, but I heard, and so I can't vouch for it, but I heard someone say that Donna will not be able to get to the, the extra food, the extra
Oh,
stuff,
the
the
commissary. Yeah,
commissary.
Katie mentioned that too.
Yeah,
Katie
okay,
said that. Yeah, she said maybe they would take it out of her commissary account.
yeah,
That would be great.
yeah,
So, you got to pay it off before you
yeah,
can get your squeezed cheese and
right.
ramen and
And
coffee.
that would be some pressure on Harvey to, maybe, make some of the assets liquid and get them so that she's going to be able to, assuming they've got that much left, in
Mm.
the properties and things, so that she'd at least be able to get the commissary. I think I heard it. I don't think I heard Katie say it. I must have missed your show. I think I heard Patty say it because she did some work in the jail. She was a nurse in the jail for a little while, and her son was a guard in the jail. So she's got more information
Oh,
about
yeah, Patty
how
said
the
that.
jails work. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So that would be some pressure on them to pay. He didn't, have they sold the condo in Miami, the big fancy one?
Not that I know of.
And
Yeah,
that would be in
I don't
both
think
their
so.
names. Now, I don't know what Florida, now we're moving into real estate law, where Judy, you and
Yeah.
I were there once. We didn't know it then, we don't
Yeah,
know it
it's
yet.
like
But
we don't know Florida real estate
no,
law.
and so I don't know whether you have that protection of your home, no matter how much the value of the home is. Some states allow you to
Oh,
protect it
yeah.
up to a certain amount. Some say if
Mhm.
it's, your residence, the whole thing, and he's still living there. So,
Yeah, I think it's the whole thing. That's what I seem to
uh,
recall because the people accused of murdering my friend Robert Juan, they quickly moved to Florida and purchased a house there.
yeah.
So they still have a house in Miami.
See, and I don't understand, if you squirrel away assets in anticipation of bankruptcy, the feds can go after you for 2-3 years if they decide that you did it, for that reason and not for some other reason. And I'm just a little surprised that in these trusts and the real estate trusts and the other things, that there isn't some provision that it's set up in good faith and not to hide your assets from debtors or from creditors who have a legitimate claim.
Mhm.
So, but I, Judy, Judy and I, the last time around, at least I betrayed how little I know about real estate law, particularly in Florida. It didn't get better in the last week or two.
Yeah, yeah, we're not doing research trying to bone up on CLE for
No,
Florida real estate
no.
law. Yeah, but Harley mentions this. Thank you for the info. Florida can take 55% of an inmate's commissary for court costs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but you're allowed, let me see if I understand this. If you've got family, they can put more money in. So
yeah,
is it whatever they put in, Florida can take 55% out?
sounds like it.
Okay,
Yeah. So, yeah, and that would be money paid to the court, not to the boys. Yeah.
right.
Um, okay, I'm sorry. I'm skipping through a lot. Yeah, people have been saying that Wendy is using a different name now, Jill Estrada.
Estrada.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's true or not. So I searched for her bar profile and it still says Wendy Jill
Yeah.
Adelson with
What
the
I think,
same address.
what I think they're saying is she hasn't changed it legally, but
Yeah,
she's
but
using it
socially.
social. Yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense because if I were her, I would do the same thing, because her name is pretty out there. People can quickly Google her and find all sorts of
yes,
YouTube
but now this
shows.
name is out there too. You can Google this
Yeah,
also.
Jill Estrada. Yeah, yeah.
It didn't
So
work.
Yeah, that's true because now we have social media everywhere. So, yeah. Let me see. I'm sorry. Let me scroll down quickly and then what do you think Fulford charged for the services? Not
I
cheap.
I have no idea. I wouldn't even guess.
Yeah.
But whatever she charged, she was overpaid.
Yeah. I thought Jeremy Mutz was being very tactful, saying that he thought she did a decent job or something. But the more I keep thinking about her terrible closing argument, I was like, that was horrible. Why would you spotlight so many things that make your client look worse?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well,
So,
Jeremy also practices. Doesn't he still practice in Florida? He's not
yes.
just doing books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's still
And that
practicing.
gives you a different, I
Yeah.
mean,
And he
and
knew
he
her.
knows her. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a different vibe.
Yeah, thank you, Tanika. Please subscribe to Tanika's 2 cents also. She's had tons of great videos and live streams focusing
Yeah.
on this case. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, so not a legal change. She's using a different name for the boys too. Wow.
Is she? Those boys are going through their third name change and they're not arguing about it. They're
Wow.
old enough to argue now.
Wow, that's horrible. That's horrible.
It is horrible.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, nothing really comes up so far. If you Google her, yeah. Okay. So maybe we should get ready to go since I still have tons of stuff to do as usual. But yeah. So please subscribe to Tanika's 2 cents also.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so we'll have to find other things to cover. Like have you been reading about other cases lately?
Yeah, I saw a couple people in the chat asked me if I was ready to launch a channel, and I probably will, maybe in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and it will be Gavel and Gab with Prof. Joe. And I have looked at something. Some of them, though, are this trial. I think I told you, Judy, that I want to look at the derivative use immunity and get it all down in one place. I also want to look at what Donna's likely appeal claims will be. I think they rehearsed some of them at the sentencing hearing. I want to look at Charlie. His appeal is going to be denied, but then he's going to file post-conviction relief on the conflict of interest. I want to look at that. There's
Yeah.
a something that isn't a trial up in New Jersey right now, where a teenager was stalked by, I think he was a teenager, but maybe a little older, and he just ran both of them down in a car, killed both her and her girlfriend. And they still haven't decided what they're doing with it, but I want to look at that. I want to go back actually to the Jennifer Soto, the Madeline Soto case, because I think that child was really not only misused by the predator who murdered her, but by her mother, and I think to some extent by the prosecutor, to allow him to plead no contest so he didn't have to say he did it. At least in Utah, they made Kohlberg, what is his name? I
Brian?
mispronounced. Yeah,
Brian?
they made him plead guilty and then was sentenced.
Mhm.
But in the Soto case, they let him say, I didn't, there's enough evidence, but I'm not going to say I did it. So he can walk around forever saying he didn't do it. And I just
Mhm.
think it's an outrage. And I think that that child was misused all along the way. And I want to at least look into it. And what I want to do is look at Jennifer's interviews, because she was interviewed by the police, to see, because she said 3 or 4 things that I thought were really incriminating. And I want to go through those interviews and highlight them again. I don't know that it'll do any good, but it'll make me feel better, because I just don't think she had anybody advocating for her. And it was a
Oh,
real tragedy.
yeah. So what happened to Jennifer Soto?
Nothing.
What? She didn't get charged?
Nope.
Oh,
Not unless it happened recently and I didn't see it, but no, nothing.
Oh, well, that's horrible. I mean, I don't know details about it because some of these cases involving child victims is just too
Awful.
depressing to
I know.
delve into it. So, yeah. Well, that would be great if once you start your channel and then you can start doing deep dives and have real legal expertise to teach us about
Oh,
these
you have
cases.
plenty of legal
Yeah.
expertise.
Yeah.
I heard you dredge up the statute of frauds, and I don't know,
Oh,
didn't catch the whole of it. I
statute of
went, oh
frauds.
my God.
Yeah, I have to remember all that stuff I learned for Barbary 20 something years ago. Yeah. So, oh, well, of course, by the way, you guys, please subscribe to my father's alibi, Allison's channel. So
Yeah.
I assume most people know about her channel by now, but I think the Maine district attorney in San Mateo is supposed to make his decision on Thursday
Oh,
whether to
really?
move forward.
Wow.
Yeah.
And she's done a great job. She posts, I don't know, Allison, if you're doing it every day, but certainly regularly. And I think that's such a great idea to send him an email every day about something about her mother or about something about the case. I just think that was inspired to do it. Um, and Allison, you are also, um, I mean, maybe we should, maybe when I get going, you can be a guest, because I think with all the domestic violence murders we're seeing, that you are really really a model, or to look at, of a child who got through it and has a thriving career and a great family, and and it's a kind of a sort of a light to say that other kids can do it too. And there's so many of these going on. It's just terrible, really
Mhm.
terrible.
Yes. Yeah. So it's been great getting updates through Allison's channel.
Yeah.
And I sent another email to Wagstaff yesterday, just something real short because I don't want to be like an annoying type of,
Yeah.
like after a while they'll tune out if you seem like some sort of nutcase who keeps emailing them, I think. But, I just wanted to let this guy know there are people across the whole country who are listening
Yeah.
and have heard about Nancy's case. So it's so important. Um, oh, what about this? Did you follow the Rastelli murder case where the mother-in-law was Googling Donna Adelson to
So,
try to get tips on how to get away with murder or something? I was like, you're so stupid. Donna's arrested now. Yeah, but I mean, we shouldn't laugh because this poor man was lured to his in-laws' house where his brother-in-law shot him,
yeah, and
shot
their
and killed
story
him.
was so bad. I mean,
Yeah,
the story of they didn't know he's coming, when there's evidence that they'd put a, what did they do? They put in some sort of tracker in the car so they'd know when he arrived, and the
yeah,
police found the tracker. And I mean, I
yeah.
don't know how these people. I saw in the chat earlier that somebody said that the Adelsons didn't even, they just hired people who'd never killed anyone before. And I was thinking, if I, not I would never, but if you're thinking about how would you find a paid assassin who's had experience to kill your son-in-law, where would you look? You can't put an ad in the paper, you know.
Yeah.
So how do you
Well,
find them? Chris, I don't know how you'd find even somebody for a first time who'd be willing to do it for money, much less, do it, find someone who's got a track record of doing it.
mhm.
Yeah.
Well,
And then there's the other one that I think I may want to look at a little is the woman who, her husband is poisoned, and then she writes the children's book about children
oh yeah,
getting through grief
Mary
and that.
Richmond. Yeah,
Yeah.
Richmond.
And that one's gotten a little more, the evidence there is going to be a little harder, because the domestic in the house got her the drugs that were used, I think it was fentanyl,
Oh,
through a dealer. And the dealer is now saying that when he said he supplied her the drugs, it wasn't fentanyl, it was oxycodone. And he was high and he doesn't even remember saying it, but now he knows and he didn't say it. So the tracing the drug is going to be a little harder in that case. So they're going to have to do more to get there. So that's another one that I think
Mhm.
would be
Okay. Well,
interesting.
people want to know, when are you going to start your YouTube channel?
Well,
Because you
it's
keep
not,
mentioning it.
yeah, believe me, it's not being a tease. It's that I don't know enough about how you put things together to be able to say, here's the day that I'll be ready. If this were something I knew all the components of and how long it would take to get ready, I would be able to tell you. But I don't know enough to know. So it's not being a tease. It's being what would be the word?
Just
Ignorant. Yeah.
or being overwhelmed and having too many things to deal with right now. Well, the first step is that you probably want to have a very concise, short video to, kind of like be your introduction to YouTube, because you can't start by live streaming when you have no subscribers.
Right.
So, unless you don't mind live streaming with us, I'm sure we could give you publicity
Oh, that
and
would be nice.
we'll show up to your live stream. So maybe you could, since you have enough YouTube
Yeah.
connections,
Well,
that
we'll
you could.
see. But it's
Yeah.
definitely not that I'm being a tease. I'm usually pretty upfront, one way or the other, right or
Yeah.
wrong, good or bad.
Yeah, she
I'm
does
usually out there.
intend. Yeah, she intends to create that
That's right.
YouTube channel.
You
Yeah,
don't usually come to me for subtlety.
yeah. Yeah. But, since you've been on Surviving the Survivor a ton of times, so lots of people know you now. So never mind, maybe you could start as your very first thing, one live stream,
Well,
but you have to publicize it like
yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
because have you figured out StreamYard yet? You can
I
get a
mean,
free StreamYard account.
yeah, I know that, but I don't want to start it until I know I have a period of time, because you only can do the free for a short period. So I want to be
Oh,
sure that I have enough free days in a row or whatever, so that I don't waste any of the little time they give you where you don't pay.
oh,
And so that I'm going to have to, and I've got, family stuff coming up. So I
mhm,
know I don't have a stream of time to do that for
oh,
at least a few days. And I don't want to do it until I've got the other, I'm grabbing video now and looking at documents and things that I want to use. And ultimately, I really want to get to the point where I can do the live trials, because I got such a kick out of doing that. And the people in the chat asked such good questions, and it was just a lot of fun. So,
mhm.
well,
Yeah,
thank you, Julie.
as long as you can get, like I said, a legitimate stream that's not gonna get your live shut
Trouble, right?
down or
Right,
copyright or
right.
whatever,
Yeah,
because YouTube will do weird things like that depending on,
yeah.
whether the person who got the stream gets mad at you and finds out or something. So, yeah, but so see, lots of people are saying they're so excited and can't
Oh,
wait.
thank you. They're very
Uh,
kind.
yeah, thank you. Yeah. Okay. Well, it looks like it's time for me to go. My kid is starting to practice piano, even though it's past 9. So that's my cue to exit stage left and get some real work done. Thank you so much, Joe.
Well,
It's such
thank
a
you. It was
pleasure
fun.
always to talk to you. And
Well, thank you. And it's always fun for me to listen to you. And just so the chat knows, I said to Judy, she hasn't done one of those comedy things, particularly with Mona, in a while. And they really need to get moving, because they're such a great team. I think you could go to one of those, those nightclubs where they have that, the
open
stand-up
mic.
and come in. I think, yeah, open mic, yes.
Yeah, right. Well, the thing is that this is what's so cool about YouTube is that Mona and we just met through YouTube, and
Yeah.
she lives on the West Coast.
Oh,
So,
does she?
so that's another reason why even if a comedy club would have us,
Yeah,
like we don't live anywhere
it would
close to
be
each
tough.
other.
Yeah.
And plus, how many people know about this whole Adelson Dan Markel case? So we have our
Well,
little
that's
niche
true. Can you
community
do it
here.
at CrimeCon? Would they get? Because I've never been to CrimeCon, so I don't know. Would they give you a booth? Do a
Yeah,
live show
I
there?
don't know. Yeah. CrimeCon is kind of expensive though,
Is
because
it? I
if
had
you
no
wanna
idea.
yeah, if you wanna attend, I feel like the last time I checked it would cost at least like $500 to $700 or
Wow.
more, depending on what kind of pass or ticket you want. Then you also have to pay for airfare and
The
hotel and
hotel,
stuff.
yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, so I'm kind of like, it's just fun doing YouTube, and it's hard
Mhm.
for me talking to people. So do I really want to go to CrimeCon? Although it sounds interesting. If it were free, I would go, but yeah, I got real work. So
Well, you better
yeah,
go to your son.
yeah, you hear him
Be a
banging
good
on a
parent.
piano down there. Yeah. Okay, well, have
Okay,
a good night, everybody. Thank
so
you, and
long.
please tune in on Tuesday if you like loophole lawyers. So hopefully some people will still support us. Okay. Thank you. Have a
So
good
long.
night. Okay, bye.